All right, guys, this episode's going to be a lot of fun. We had a record-breaking close cart launch for our LinkedIn Method Academy. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about the strategies around what it took for us to literally double our revenue overnight and have a record-breaking $300,000 in sales in 24 hours. I hope you guys enjoy it. Need some effective tactical advice that actually helps you get results and makes a real difference in your life and business? You've come to the right place. If you're finding yourself here today, it means you're getting ready to gain serious traction in your business, rapidly multiply your income and impact, and you're ready to make it happen while living all out. Guys, I'm Melissa Hinault, your trustworthy corporate dropout turned six-figure business burnout turned happy and healthy CEO of a multi-million-dollar online business. And you're listening to the Burnout to All Out podcast. On this show, we're serving up innovative growth strategies, simple implementation methods to put them into practice, and action-stimulating inspiration tailored specifically for the modern entrepreneur. Let's dive in. Okay. So today's session, I love sharing with you guys like real time behind the scenes, what's going on in our own business, right? So some of you guys are aware we just went through our own launch and closed the door literally yesterday, 2 days ago. So we just went through our own 9-day launch. So for those of you that launch and do an open cart kind of strategy, this is what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to share with you just really my insights and what we've learned. You guys know that we've been on this launch journey for 4 years now. Okay. We've actually been selling the same product for 4 years. Okay. We've been selling the same product for 4 years. And I want some of you guys to keep in mind the first time we ever sold it, I made $1,200 and I was selling it for $100 a pop. So just do the math, right? I sold 12 in my first cohort, right? And a large majority of those recorded modules are still in the back end that many of you guys invested in. Obviously, we've updated a lot of the stuff as LinkedIn has evolved, right? But I'm here to talk to you today about having the highest close cart day that we've ever had in the history of Burnout to All Out. Even in our launch in July where we did 770,000. And I want you to know that on our closed cart day, you guys can write this down just so you know the numbers. On our closed cart day of 770,000 on closed cart, we closed 45 sales that day. So as we were coming into this launch, our enrollments were a little bit lower. Our views were a little bit lower. And some of you hopped on a little bit later, but I talked about how this time of year, people are extremely distracted. We had just as many registrants as our last launch, but a good 4% less showing up on the screen. They were just like me as a mom I was pulled in a million different directions during this launch with Boy Scouts and soccer and open house and all the things, right? People were really distracted. And so the enrollments were coming in slower. The attendees, there was less, but there was a ton of conversation in the DMs. And there was never seen so many people watching replays instead of attending live. And so to me, and I had to tell the team, I think that folks showing up live right now is just a leading indicator, not necessarily indicative of how many sales we're going to close because people are just really busy right now. So having said that, I went to bed on Tuesday night of closed cart at 9:45. And keep in mind, our last launch on closed cart, we did 46 sales, right? And it was a big launch. We did 770K. And so Tuesday night, we'd done 36 sales, right? 36 sales. Our last launch on closed cart, we had done 45. And I thought, well, this is it. Part of me thought, I'm going to tell you the rest of the strategy and what really happened in a minute. But there's a part of me at 9:45 that was well, we'll see what happens, but I'm going to bed. I woke up the next morning and we had closed 20 more sales and we had ultimately closed 56 people in one day. We did $300,000 in 24 hours. We literally, at this point, nearly 50% of our revenue was done in 24 hours. Okay. Here's my kind of take home message and just insights under the hood, like why and how I think our team really was able to execute on that. And I want to take you to a couple of analogies. First of all, it's always a pep talk by my business coach who says, people have more money in their bank accounts than they ever have right now. But the reality is, because the market is unstable, people are having a harder time parting with their money more than ever. It doesn't mean the opportunity isn't there. Okay. What it means is that we have to work harder to earn the transaction. Okay. Chris said this the other day, and it really resonated in our mastermind call. He said, when the economy is phenomenal and everybody's fat and happy and rates are low, like sales are easy, right? You're just sending transactions. You're just sending a transaction and people are putting their credit card in. Where the rubber meets the road, and we're actually good at sales, which, by the way, it's like we can't be in business if we're not good at sales, right? Is when it's an unstable economy, when you have to double down and work for that transaction, right? And so I take you to where we are in September of 2023, and less views than ever. People are distracted, right? And I want you guys, I'm going to share with you some of the strategies that we take that I want you guys to take into your conversion events and how you launch. Okay. Okay, gang, we need to take a quick hydration break. So grab your drink of choice. And as you rehydrate, I'll give you the lowdown on my free LinkedIn lead gen masterclass. If you feel like you're screaming into the void when you post content on Facebook or Instagram, struggling to find a sustainable and scalable lead generation process that sticks, and you just want someone who's been there and done that to reveal their secrets, then it's critical that you register to save your spot ASAP. During this live masterclass, you'll get to steal the exact strategy I used to scale my income from $0 to $1 million in just 19 months without spending a fortune on ads or suffering from burnout. Simply check out the show notes of the podcast episode for the link to register for your free spot in the LinkedIn Lead Gen Masterclass. And don't worry, even if you miss a couple of days or you can't make it to all the training sessions, we'll deliver the replays directly into your inbox daily so you can watch them on your own time. All you have to do is make sure you sign up for the masterclass before registration ends. I see this a lot. People give up before the game is over. They feel deflated. Think about this. Going into Tuesday, we had done 300,000 in sales, which sounds huge for you guys, I know. But I want you to keep in mind that we hadn't done half the revenue yet, and there was 24 hours left. Let that sink in. And what happens so many times, and this is especially for Claire to hear because she's in the middle of launch and she's opened her cart, like winners sprint to the finish, right? And so many entrepreneurs get within 24 hours of closing cart and they're so beat up and they're so deflated and they feel like they've lost the game and don't realize half the revenue is on the other side of their energy, their tenacity, their strategy, their ability to follow up, right? And so winners sprint to the finish. However, what I want you guys to write down is that winners also pace themselves. Okay. And this is something I have learned from years of launching. The first 2 years, I almost threw in the towel to never do it again because I was so burnt out and exhausted when doing them, right? And what I learned is what I've learned through training for marathons and even going back to my days of competitive soccer. When I played competitive soccer, so just follow me on this for a minute, I had the most phenomenal coach from South America, and he would make us take our ball before practice and kick our ball on the cross-country trail and run for 3 miles before practice. We hated it, right? But here's what would always happen. It didn't matter how talented the other team was that we played. By the end of the game, in the 9th hour, no matter how talented the other team was, they didn't have as much energy as we did. They might have had more skill, but we had more endurance. And we would kick their ass at the end, the last minute, right? And it's the same thing with marathons. Has anybody ever done endurance running, endurance training? Yeah. So what happens in a marathon? You actually hold back. You hold steady, right? You're a caged lion those first 10 to 15 miles, right? But if you go too hard and fast out of the gate, there will be no glycogen left. You will hit a wall and you will never make it across the finish line. Correct? Right? But if you hold steady, then when you get to that last 2 to 3 miles, now it's time to pick up the pace. You've got the reserve. It's time to sprint to the finish, right? And so I use these analogies because this is, my friends, what we really have to do when it comes to launching, right? As you guys know, your energy is everything. And your energy transfers through how you're showing up in consult calls, how you're showing up in the DMs. If you've already thrown in the towel, also how you're even not showing up, right? And so we have to preserve our energy. So where I want to go with this is a couple of things. Number one is pace yourself as much as you want to come out of the gate hard and fast. Know that if you do not reserve energy in the tank for those last 12 to 24 hours, I could have forgone literally $300,000 in sales. And I'll share with you why in a couple minutes, what I did in those 24 hours, right? The second thing is, as hard as it is to do, and I coach my team this all the time, during launch, it is an absolute mandatory. You're getting 8 hours of sleep up until the end. Like, you must sleep. You tell yourself that you need to stay up. You tell yourself you need to follow up with everyone. Again, energetically, where the game is won is at the end. And if you have burned the candle at both ends the entire time, you don't have the reserve to kick it into high gear at the end, and you give up so much, right? So religiously, I would go to bed every single night and get my 8 hours. There's days in the middle of launch I actually sleep in as like my midpoint, right? So like typically on Wednesdays before open cart, I actually go to bed early and I don't set the alarm. If you know me, you know I'm up at 5 a.m. every single day. That's the day I literally sleep till my body tells me I'm rested, right? No alcohol. Right? Some of us like to unwind at night. I'm here to tell you it will fuck up your sleep, and it is going to drain you, and you're not going to show up as well as you could. Right? And if you move your body, continue to move your body. If you don't move your body, don't use launch as a time to go start training for a marathon. Right? I would say kind of dial it back just a little bit so that your exercise is invigorating, but not draining, because people underestimate the amount of energy required to be on point and present. When I wear my Whoop strap, you guys should all have an Oura ring or a Whoop strap. Yes, or something. I lifted nearly 20,000 pounds in total at the gym the other morning with squats and all the things. And my Whoop strap couldn't tell the difference between the mental load and the physical load that day. If you look at the chart from my workout at 5 a.m. and you look at my respirations and heart rate going live from noon to 1, my Whoop strap thought that I was in the gym repping it out with heavy weights because of the mental load that triggers all kinds of adrenaline in our bodies. Our heart rate goes up, our respirations get short, and it mentally exhaust you. And this is a true fatigue. So some of you may be in the middle of launch and you're like, I haven't even exercised this week. Why do I feel like I've ran a marathon? Your gut and your brain actually expend more energy than any other part of your body, which is why when you overeat over Thanksgiving, you want to pass out. And it's why when you start a brand new job, the first couple of weeks you come home just wiped because the mental load is like you're trying to take it all in, right? So we can't underestimate the energy suck that happens in the middle of launch and the anxiety of the open cart that's coming and who's going to buy and the stories that we're telling ourselves, right? So protect your energy through sleep, nutrition, and just do away with the alcohol, right? I think I've had 2 glasses of wine in the whole month because I've got my live event coming up too. And I'm just like, you want to be on point, no fog. Okay. Another thing is with protect your energy is clear your calendar. This is something I was not good at when I first started launching. I would think that, well, I can fit in client coaching around my live stream. I can do these things around my launch calendar. I'm here to tell you, every minute that you're coaching, consulting, going into your inbox, it creates an energetic tug and it pulls you out of alignment of being focused on your launch. This may sound a little crazy, but the large majority of it, I have an outward bound email that says during launch, sorry for the delay, but I'm in the middle of a launch and it may be a couple of days until I get back to you. Because the worst thing is like being squirreled by an email that takes you down into a rabbit hole of action or time or like thoughts about something that squirrel your brain into a negative space, right? My team knows we hold like as much back from me as possible until the cart is opened. So for us with a 9-day launch, the first 4 days, my team knows like any disaster, don't bring me unless it absolutely needs my decision before the cart opens, right? So like literally yesterday, Allie was like, okay, now the cart's closed. I got to unload a bunch of shit on you. Here's what's happened, right? So you protect your energy, especially if any of you have like an assistant that can help you with your inbox. It's a great time. The other thing about protecting your energy is making adequate space for consults so that you aren't exhausted, right? If you have a packed calendar around your launch, serving your clients, instead of getting into a cadence of kind of creating a little bit more space from your clients during launch weeks, again, energetically, there's only so much you can give and there's only so much energy you can exchange. And if you're doing consult calls around launch and around coaching clients, it can become really, really exhausting. And some of you, your calendar's already jammed for this part of the year. And I get that, but be more aggressive with that next year, right? It's one of the best things that I've learned trial by error is in November of every year, I plan my calendar for the whole next year. Map out your launches for the whole next year and go ahead and create buffers around those launches where clients can't book calls with you. You're not available for guest speaking, right? You can get ahead of this so that you own the energy around that launch and it's super protective, right? Okay. What else? Get help with, get support from the spouse. You guys are amazing. We've got the Buckleys here who know, and they're supporting each other. But if you haven't had this conversation, I had to have this conversation with my husband literally this year. Because I love him. He's supportive, but he made some kind of snide comment about how stressed I get during launch and how it would be great if we could dial back the number of launches because mom gets stressed. And in a very loving and compassionate way, I said to him, and this is where you may have to have these conversations with your spouse, right? I'm like, look, here's the deal. For you, when you have some huge meeting and presentation that you need to make, you leave this house and you either get on a plane and are completely separated from the chaos of day-to-day life and the children, and you can get yourself straight in a hotel room and then walk into a boardroom and do your presentation, and or you still leave this house and you go into an office. And what if like a third of your paycheck for the year hinged on that week and what came out of your mouth, right? And I said, so if I seem a little tense, it's human nature. I'm kind of stressed out at the load that's coming at me and the responsibility and the revenue that's going to be coming in. And what I could really use is some compassion and support and maybe overlook my edginess during that time and know that I'm doing everything I can for this family. And just envision that my office happens to be me walking from the living room where there's a kid with a fever of 103 and the other one's barfing into an office to live stream globally with thousands of people, just like you would walk into a boardroom. Mine just happens to be in the house. And having that frank conversation with him was one of the best things I ever could have done. Because now he's like Team Melissa Hinault, right? Like he is all about protecting my energy and texting me and like, what are the numbers today, babe? How's it looking? What can I do? Where do I need to take the kids? He literally took the kids to Raleigh this past Saturday. In the past, it would have been a debate of who could he leave behind. It's just a lot to juggle all the kids. He didn't even ask. He had a company picnic, which is like 3 hours away from here. And he's like, babe, I'm going to take the kids. You do your thing, right? He gets it. So sometimes it's just giving them some perspective on what you're holding when you're doing these launches, right? What you're holding and the vision with the family and what it's going to do for them, right? Okay. Creating urgency. So I used to do rolling enrollment. Like we would close the door in the sense that the price would go up. That was our closed door. It was like, tomorrow the price goes up. And I used to do that and you guys can choose to do what you want, but I did that out of scarcity because I was afraid I was going to lose sales if I didn't keep the door open. And what I have found is two things. People purchase when you give them a deadline. And when you continue to do that, you condition people to realize if they don't purchase, the option's off the table till the next time you come around, right? Number two, for you all, logistically, it is a nightmare to continually onboard new clients versus bring them in as a cohort for those of you who do class style. And what we found is that doing the rolling enrollments, quite honestly, is just a couple like here and there throughout like a number of months. And they would always get lost in the group. They were the ones that would complain because they didn't really know where anything was. They weren't really integrated in with the group, right? And so one of the best things we did in my business in January of this year is say, cart closed. We're not raising the price. The cart just closes and you can't get in, right? And holding to that. Why? When I laid my head down at night at 9:45 on Tuesday night, while I was sleeping across the entire world, people were putting their credit cards in and money was just going, whoo, 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 envision it, all over the world. Why? Because they knew if their asses didn't get that credit card in by midnight, they weren't getting in. There is power to urgency. And I'm not saying this to be manipulative. We are doing this to serve. We are forcing people to get off the fence. It is painful to be on the fence. Make the decision and move forward, or get off the fence and stay stuck. But it's really uncomfortable to sit in the middle. And I'm not going to rub your back and keep you here, right? Force the decision. Okay. Be organized. So I think Mandy and I were just talking about it, my sales manager. I think a lot of people are surprised, even my Facebook ads manager, to know that I am still, as big as our company is, as large as our launches are, I am still in the DMs with every single hot lead that we have. Does that surprise you guys or no? Like every single hot lead, right? And it's for efficiency. So my Facebook ads manager, she's like, your team is like the greatest of all time. You guys are incredible because you do the pre-work, you nurture, you follow up. And a lot of people don't realize the importance of, and we'll talk about this, the nurture up. I get into conversations with registrants before the cart opens on purpose. I want to make connection with these people. I don't want to just jump into their DMs the day the cart opens and say, hey, I know I've never said anything to you in the DMs, but are you going to join me? Right? And this is one of the reasons it's really important to have your calendar cleared out during launch, because this is an income producing activity. But if you're totally booked with clients, you're not going to be able to do this. Right? So I am literally in the DMs leading up to open cart, asking people, hey, what light bulb moment are you having? Hey, what are you hoping to learn more about? Tell me a little bit more about your business, right? So then it's a very authentic transition when the cart opens to say, oh my gosh, I'm so curious after being in conversation with you. Are you considering joining us in the academy? Right? And so this is where getting really organized with who your leads are that are hot, right? Like you can use an Asana board, you can use an Excel spreadsheet, but where it can become a really hot mess is if you don't have a system to kind of organize who you're in conversations with that seem like a good conversation to come back to, right? That they're really viable leads and a good candidate for your program based off of the questions you're asking them, based off of their engagement. And some of you may have an assistant, a virtual assistant that's helping you with this, and that's awesome. You can kind of help them with some clarifying questions to help kind of tease out, is this a warm/hot lead? If so, let's put them over in this column so that when the cart does open, I am really efficient with my time. What do you think I did when the cart opened? I went straight to the hot leads first, right? I was organized. I didn't just go to my whole list of people who registered. I went to the people I'd been nurturing that were responding to me, that seemed pretty qualified based off their profiles, right? And where they are in their stage of business. So you need to be tracking them, right? And even for those who book clarity calls with you that don't purchase, that's another really good rock to turn over, right? So when you're going towards closed cart and you've had one-on-ones with people, you want to be really organized with maybe who showed up to a Q&A but hasn't purchased, who attended a clarity call with you and hasn't purchased. But the thing is, if we're a hot mess and we're all over the place, we're not organized with our time. If you've got 20 minutes that day, where do you want it? You want it with the people strategically who are so hot. They've been on a clarity call. They were on a Q&A. They were on screen every day, right? So we just want to stay organized with our leads throughout launch. Okay. Then, my friends, and that brings me to the final sprint, right? So the reason we sleep 8 hours a day and pace ourselves is for the last 48 hours, right? This is where my whoop strap goes into the red and I am exhausted and I am not sleeping. And I'm able to do that because I paced myself and I'm not running out of steam, right? And this is where my ads team and I were talking about this. This is where a lot of people in launch fall short. My mindset is I did this for 9 days and the next 24 hours could be the difference in a double of my revenue. Am I ready to call it a day and go to bed? Or am I ready to buckle up? Right? And a lot of business owners kind of new in this space or even just not willing to do the work. Think about this. If you're not willing to do that work, but you have a certain revenue goal and you're not hitting it, then you're just going to have to go back and do a whole nother launch, which is a hell of a lot more work than just going hard for those last 24 hours to turn over every single rock and have a very solid follow-up process. Does this make sense? I know that this message is really not in alignment with living all out, right? Those last 24 hours. But that is why I talk about the marathon, living all out, like taking care of yourself, the large majority of the run, why it is so important so that you have gas in the tank at the end, right? So in the final sprint, in the last 48 hours, I personally message every hot lead, which is hundreds, okay? Hundreds. If you saw my calendar, it's all I do. I know it sounds crazy for a CEO of a multi-7-figure company. It's me. Right? Because people are investing and working with me. They want to hear my voice, right? So I'm messaging all my hot leads, turning over every rock, and I'm able to do this because of the reserved energy that I have, right? What I want to talk about here that's critical is you should all have a process to make sure that your attendees have every opportunity to have every question answered. The number one reason people don't purchase is because they think that their situation is different. Number one. And what I have found that has jacked up our sales tremendously is literally from the day cart opens every day. I actually, when I'm done with my content, we flip over to Q&A. You already have a live audience sitting there. I have a list of top questions that people usually ask. And I say, the cart is open. It's going to be open for a certain amount of days. I'm here to address any questions you may have about the program. And here's the thing. You're going to get asked the same thing like a bajillion times, right, Allie? Oh my God. We've had the same question. I can't tell you how many times I had people say, well, I don't know what my offer is. Should I join? I don't know who my avatar is. Should I join? How much time is it going to take in the program? Is it going to be too much work? Is it not going to be enough work? Those 4 questions, I bet I was asked 78 times in the past 8 days. But was it worth responding to those questions every single time? Because it feels like 78 times to me, but it's the first time they're hearing it, right? It's the first time they're hearing it. And they just want some confidence directly from you that their scenario is okay. It's the right fit. We're here for you. We're going to help you. So what we do is we actually, from open cart day, and again, you guys don't have to do 9-day launches. I don't recommend you start there. But from the day the cart opens on Thursday, we do a Q&A afterwards every day. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 6 days. And I promise you every day, it's the same damn questions because they're different people that are streaming live. They're different people who have questions. They haven't watched the whole thing. They haven't heard everything you've said. They're lost, but inspired, and they need your confidence. And I think that is a piece a lot of people miss. And then we actually host what we call closed door calls those last 2 days at night for people who can't stream during the live time. We give the opportunity to have conversation in the evening when people are done with work. And guess what? Those questions, they're the exact same ones that I got all week long during the Q&A when I was streaming live. Exact same questions. But as we're addressing those questions, we see the sales just coming in. And what happens is one person asks and 5 other people had that same question. And then you're acknowledging and confirming, and people are purchasing because they're hearing someone else's question that's relevant to theirs, and it's creating some confidence, right? And the last thing I will say is as you get to building your business and you've got some clients, it's really good to bring in some client testimonials. Those sell. They loved you, Claire. Like they loved you. Like hearing from people who've worked with you they can see themselves working with you by seeing themselves through the clients you're working with, right? As you begin to build like a client base, what we do is we have kind of an organized list of clients we like to pull from, knowing different demographics, different types of businesses, and also different angles that you want to edify of your service. If someone had a really incredible experience through community, those are the questions you're going to ask. If you've got somebody who has really good data on the like hard numbers on their business from working with you, or the in transformation that you provide based off of what you do, make sure you sprinkle that in. If you've got different types of client bases that you work with, you want to mix those testimonials in as you go, right? So we try to focus on having men, having women, having like ethnically diverse, different types of businesses. For us, it's focused on product-based and service-based, right? And so knowing that's our audience base, right? And then that helps you overcome some objections in the first place that people, instead of them saying, well, I didn't see this particular type of industry or scenario, right? If you sprinkle that in, right? And if you can't pull the testimonials, share them. Fold those client stories and their scenarios into your launching, right? I do that a lot. Like for instance, Dr. Christine Manukin, we haven't had her on in a long time, but she's a perfect example of building a network on LinkedIn and then launching a functional medicine mastermind. And she did over $100,000 in sales off of LinkedIn leads exclusively in her very first launch. And so it's a really good testament to people who don't know what their offer is and they're not sure if they should invest in the academy yet, right? We want to encourage them. No, it's important to build that network first. Here's a success story of how this happened. So knowing what some of your top objections may be, you can lean on client stories and how it worked for them, right? And the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to open up for questions, is the close. Some of you are comfortable with this. Some of you are really uncomfortable with this, okay? These are my favorite questions to ask. And listen, I'll do it in a group Zoom in the evening with a lot of people. Some of you guys have seen me do it. Once I feel like I've answered their question, whether it's in a one-on-one clarity call or it's in a group Zoom, I'll just say with a smile, is there any reason you wouldn't want to join us? That gives them the opportunity to share with you any final concerns they may have. Or you get the verbal agreement that they're on board, right? And so like earlier this week, is there any reason you wouldn't want to join us? Oh man, I really want to do this, but I want to pay in full. And I'm not going to be able to move the money around until Friday. Is there any way that you can send me an invoice on Friday, right? Sure. That's fine. In that scenario, I'm not going to close the door in your face. You're just depending on your price point and people wanting to pay you in full. But had I not asked that question, she could have easily talked herself out of it, right? After we were done with the call of like, oh, I can't afford it. And the cart's about to close and I'm not going to be able to move the money around. But instead, it's validating. Wow, Melissa's willing to meet me where I am. She's accommodating and she's making an exception for me. That's validating to move forward, right? So it's one of my favorite questions to ask. And don't be attached to what they say, right? And it's a blessing when they say, well, they give you a hard objection that it's just not going to work for them, right? So that's one of my favorite things to say. Is there any reason you wouldn't want to join us today? And just say it with a smile, right? Don't be intimidating about it. So those were my notes for you guys. I'm coming hot off this launch and it being our largest closed cart day ever. I wanted to share this with you guys because my coach and the people in the mastermind I'm in are like, what did you do? What was different? It's still blowing my mind right now that the universe literally digitally like $300,000 came into the bank account all in the same day because of it. It wasn't just because of that day. It was because of all the work prior to, right? And that sprint and the energy that was left at the end, right? And being a ninja weeks to months in advance with my calendar to make sure I had the space, right? To be effective and efficient with the launch, right? Okay. So that's my story. It's a marathon, not a sprint till the end. Then it is a sprint. Make sure you've got energy for it. Thanks, guys, so much for listening in on today's podcast episode. And I can't wait for you to see my upcoming guest in the next episode. You are going to love this keynote speaker. Hey, here's the deal. If you liked this, please subscribe and leave a review. And you want the latest online business growth strategies and exclusive LinkedIn pro tips sent straight to your phone? Text the word update to 704-318-2285. That is, text the word update to 704-318-2285. Can't wait to see you guys. Come find me over on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you like to hang. I cannot wait to hear how you are enjoying and applying what you're learning. You guys reach out to me over on social because I love hearing what's resonating with you. When you reach out to me and you send me those personal DMs, they really do impact the content I continue to bring forward to you. So again, come find me, Melissa_Hinault over on Instagram, Melissa Hinault over on LinkedIn and Facebook. Can't wait to see you guys over there.